Hello, folks. I wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about the discussions and some of the ways that you can get information on how you're doing in class, especially on those discussion grades. So I have up a student view of the class, and there's a couple of things. The first is that kind of turns up here, you know that something's been graded, and you know over here that there's been a comment. You can click on these things and get a bit more information if you're patient. Okay, so here is my post, and then over here is my comment. And one of the things that I commented on here, and I saw it a couple of times, and I always really want to stress that you want to make sure of a couple of things. The first is that there is a specific assignment for the discussions to help kind of structure our conversation. And the other thing is that you need to reply to another student, and there's actually an assignment for that part as well. So if we go ahead and go over into assignments or discussions, there's two different ways to do it. I think I'll go to discussions, and I take a look at the intro. I've unpinned it, so only the top one shows now, the one we're working on. You can see that there were two things that I was asking for you to include in your post: your long-term educational goals and your experience with online learning. I was particularly pleased to see a nice balance between folks with quite a bit of experience and those who are still perhaps even being introduced for the first time to taking an online class. I mentioned to several folks who are new that you can take a look at who's posting and the kinds of things they're talking about based upon shared interests, based upon the reasons that you find for experience. You might want to go ahead and reach out to folks. This is a way through this people tab right here. It's going to have everybody. It's a way to potentially set up virtual or real study groups so that you can meet up with folks. And it's a really good way to begin to develop some community in the classroom. So feel free, if you contact somebody through the people tab, you will move to find out a little bit more about them. I think this is from the teacher perspective. But you should also be able to, through this, get a hold of folks. If this doesn't work, let me know, because I would like to know that that's not a good way to reach out to folks. I'm going back to the home page, and I wanted to show you a couple more things about your posts that are, and this is probably the most important part. When you take a look at your post, you have a couple of things that you can do. For each grade, if you have a grade, you'll notice it's identified. You also notice when it was due. You notice what kind of a score you had. This is something that did not yet get graded. So it's been turned in, but you don't have any information. I don't have any information on it. Over here, you have the score, okay? The total points possible, I'm sorry, and here's how I did on this, because I didn't address the assignment and I didn't do a reply. I said hello, but that's kind of all I did, and I need to develop my ideas in the context of the assignment. Over here, there's three icons that are particularly important. The first is, it's another way to get at your comments. The second is, it gives you some sense of, no, that doesn't work, sorry. It will give you the rubric results. And this is probably the most important. So let me show you again. This is the rubric right here. And the rubric is going to tell you, based upon the assignment, how did you do? So you'll notice that the criteria in this rubric talks about the assignment expectations, includes long-term educational goals, includes experience with online education, and reply includes connections within your stories. Many people had such great stories and good conversations started here. Most people got full credit for this. It's nice to start with what you're expert in, but we'll be moving into content, so you'll have to also be reading and preparing. before you participate in discussions moving forward. This tells you some of the places where you did or did not succeed. And so this is a very important place to start. It's most important when we look at your grade for discussion 1, because discussion 1 completely uses these rubrics as a way to organize. I wanted to talk a little bit more about discussion 1 because that's where we get into actual content-based discussions. As we look at discussion 1, I want to remind you that there's also going to be an assignment available here. And what this assignment asked for you to do was to describe and then move towards analyzing one of the visual sources in this first chapter. In order to think a little bit about what you may want to do differently, you really want to think about how you can connect the description and analysis. What you see and why what you see is meaningful and helps you learn about the past. There will be some prompts that you can use in order to think about how to develop that analysis, but it's that pairing. What is it and why is it significant that I really want you to focus in on? You need to have that evidence that I see this because I've read or I've identified something that gives me a reason, and that really will give meaning to the analysis that you have. Another thing that I want for you to keep in mind is that I'm asking for you in all of this to really think about sources, to think about visual sources, how they're used, to think about text, in this case, the description of the sources and how you can use that. And then finally, I want for you to move towards connecting with the body of the chapter. And so what I want you to make sure that you're doing as you look at the replies is to realize that oftentimes what I will ask for you to do is connect the document or the visual source, these primary pieces of information, with the secondary information, the larger kinds of discussions that are happening in the body of the chapter. This was a real challenge for folks, and it's the part that I really recommend that you think a little bit about. How can you add to the information in those from those essays at the end of the chapter by connecting it with the material that you've been reading about in the body of the chapter? And as you do this, the final thing is that you need to build a reference. You need to both cite within as well as include a reference at the end. Several people did really strong jobs of analysis and reference, and what I have done is I have liked those with the little thumbs up underneath those discussion posts. You might want to take a look at those as a reference. After you've taken a look at those reference posts, looked at your own post and looked at the rubric for discussion 1, if you have any question at all, if you would like to clarify where you can improve and also identify where you've done exactly what you need to do, I would love to work with you on that. Let me know through an inbox. We can either set up a set of conversations virtually using that inbox, or a time when we can actually talk either using the phone or come by my office if you're somebody who is occasionally on campus as well. So the first discussion and the introduction are graded. I'd ask you to hold off. You can now go ahead after you've taken the time to look at these things, to go ahead and post to discussion 2. I hope that you're getting started well and that you'll let me know when you have any question at all.